There isn't a woman he can't charm.
Can I borrow your towel for a sec? My car just hit a water buffalo.
A question he won't ask.
You and your wife are currently alive, I take it?
Your fingerprints are on the murder weapon, and someone matching your description was seen with the victim. Come back with me to police headquarters.
I get it. You want my help? Okay. Hey, guys, is there a way we can call in a coffee or a kill for a macchiato? Not literally.
Hey guys, I'm Kevin.
I'm Jake.
And this is Movie Matters. Today we're talking about Fletch from 1985 with Chevy Chase and its legacy sequel or reboot, Confess Fletch with John Hamm. I'm super excited to talk about these movies, and I'm excited for this month. We didn't really announce it in our last podcast or episode, but we are doing movies from the 80s and then their kind of legacy sequel or the reboot that has come out recently. So we've got a bunch of movies that are hopefully going to be great. And I feel like half of them I haven't seen the legacy sequels, the new sequels.
Same.
So that'll be exciting. I've seen Fletch before, but it was a long time ago. I think I found this movie in like the bargain bin in Walmart a long time ago. Watched it, didn't really care for it when I first saw it as a kid, and I think it's just the comedy was a little over my head. Rewatching it now, I enjoyed it. I still didn't love it, but I think it's funny. I think it's very Chevy Chase. What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, I'd agree. It's very dry. So you have to be like in that dry comedy mood, I think, to really appreciate it. But yeah, I mean, Chevy Chase is great in it. He's like the perfect mix of like just smart enough to like get into trouble and also like a giant asshole. So
Yeah.
like it's like you like the character a lot. And like, you know, he gets his little like jabs in at everybody, you know, along the way. But he's also not like the like unstoppable like detective, you know, like he is like a little bit of a bumbling idiot, but like he's a little less bumbling than like you know, like the Pink Panther or like something like that, you know.
It's almost like his stupidity breeds genius.
Yeah.
And that's what Fletch is all about, and I love that. Is this the first time you've seen it, right?
No, I watched it like over the summer randomly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I can't remember why.
Oh,
I
interesting.
think probably because you were bugging me to watch Confess Fletch, and I was like, I never saw the original, so I watched the original and then never got around to watching the sequel until now.
I think this was before we started the podcast too, where I texted you out of the blue, being like, Confess Fletch, you got to watch it.
It could, yeah, it very well.
It was 2022 and we started this in 2023, right? Or 2024?
No, it was
2023. Yeah.
Yeah.
July of 2023.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah, I like this movie. Again, I don't love it. The soundtrack is very 80s. And while watching it, I'm like, this sounds literally exactly like Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah.
Did you have the same feeling? Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's because it's the same composer, Harold Faltermeyer.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked that up and I was just like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Like it's especially watching it the second time now that we've watched 2 Beverly Hills Cop movies. I'm like, this is like the same exact shit, like almost like note for note in some like parts. I was like, I'm pretty sure it's the same guy.
Yeah, and it like is very aggressive and in your face and like, you know, very piano heavy and very detective like, sleuth like. Yeah. And I was just like, this is very Beverly Hills Cop. So I mean I like the soundtrack. I think it's very 80s and very, you know, of its time and again why we're doing these movies.
It definitely fits the movie well.
Yeah.
Like, it's got like a little bit of that, like it strikes a good balance between the kind of goofy like aspects of the movie, but also like the very like gritty plot line, which is about like corruption and like drug sales and stuff in LA. But yeah, like the soundtrack I think helps it walk that line extremely well.
And it's funny because I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, you don't see any like drugs in the movie at all.
No, they just talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, so the movie's rated PG, which is also surprising. I mean, obviously this is kind of right when PG-13 is kind of coming out. And I'm glad, and we'll get to it, obviously Confess Fletch is R, and then it's perfect for that type of movie. I mean, this movie could almost be R. Fletch.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I don't know if they drop any F-bombs in Fletch.
I don't think so.
So yeah, I mean, it's probably a like soft PG-13 rating.
Yeah, I mean, they say some somewhat vulgar things.
Yeah. There's like a couple.
Yeah, like I mean, the beginning with Chevy Chase and Alan. I forget the actor's name, and I apologize, but and I like him. What's his name? Tim Matheson, who plays Alan Stanwyck. I like that actor. He's like offering Fletch a job, and Fletch is like, "Don't talk to me like that, ass hat." Or ass face. Ass face, excuse me. Yeah, don't talk to me like that, ass face. I don't work for you yet. Which is funny. There's such witty lines in this movie, and I like that, and that adds to the charm. And then, you get the whole shtick of Fletch with his alter egos, or his names that are usually well-known people, and like all these people are just oblivious to it. Like Ted Nugent, he says, "I'm Ted Nugent." Like that's hilarious.
Or he like has like a clever way to kind of like deflect, like the Harry S. Truman. He's like, "Yeah, my parents loved him."
Yeah. It's like, how do people not know? But it almost and you and I, we like the show. It feels almost like Psych. Like Psych is like this.
Yeah, very much.
And that's really cool.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously Psych came out after this, and these movies, the Fletch movies, there's 3 technically, including Confess Fletch. They're all based on books. Have you read any of the books?
No, I haven't.
Okay, neither have I. Chevy Chase has actually gone on record saying this was like his favorite movie he's ever done because he felt like he could be himself, which I could totally see that. Apparently, in real life, I don't know if you've read like other like people have said that Chevy Chase is kind of an asshole.
Yeah.
And is not easy to work with. And like that's why Chris Columbus was supposed to direct Christmas Vacation and backed out. It's because Chevy Chase is an asshole. Mm-hmm. I just watched Saturday Night. Have you heard of that movie? It just came out pretty recently.
No.
It's on Netflix now.
Oh, the SNL documentary
like
kind of thing, or
kind of.
Not it's like a biopic kind of thing.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. I wouldn't even consider it a biopic, but even though it's based on what happened, and the guy who plays Chevy Chase in it's good, and you can tell he's like kind of an asshole. He like walks that line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. Like there was always a lot of. I learned that he was an asshole from Community because everybody on the show like hated working with him, even though he's like unbelievably funny. But
have you watched that show?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite shows.
Okay, I've never watched it.
It's so good.
I'll have to check it out.
And he's kind of like a side character, but he's like it's the funniest thing I've ever seen him in.
Really?
Yeah, he's so funny in it. I highly recommend Community if you haven't watched it.
Yeah. I've always liked Chevy Chase. I mean, I've always thought his movies are funny. I mean, they're not amazing. Like, I love all the vacation movies for the most part. I mean, I watched a lot of them as a kid. And Three Amigos, Caddyshack, He did the same director that did this, Michael Ritchie. He did Cops and Robertsons, which is a stupid movie that I watched as a kid and I liked it. It's got Jack Palance in it, and I liked him from City Slickers. I mean, it's crazy how much money Chevy Chase has probably made off all the movies he's made. But speaking of which, this movie was an $8 million budget and made almost $60 million, so it made a ton of money at the box office. And I mean, I could see why Chevy Chase had that appeal. He was kind of a box office draw, and it's a comedy. And '85 is like a prime year for good movies, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, like, this movie has a lot going for it. Like, it is pretty accessible from like the comedic like level, but it's also got like such a like rich kind of like noir detective story that if you really want to dive into that, it's also like thoroughly entertaining, which is usually like a very difficult line to hit. Like, mixing those two genres is not easy.
I feel like this movie, and it's very similar to the other one, to Confess Fletch, is like you're kind of discovering everything with Fletch.
Yeah.
I mean, in Confess Fletch, Fletch knows more than the audience for the most part, but it's just like it all unfolds at the end, and you're like, oh, okay, and that's kind of like how a noir movie is.
Right.
So, do you like that? What do you think?
I think in this context, it has to be that way. Like, to keep that like comedic aspect, I feel like you have to be on the journey with him.
Yeah.
And like bumbling along with him. Otherwise, I feel like you wouldn't, like, the jokes wouldn't be as funny if you know that, like, he's set up, to get, like, screwed,
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of what I think about it.
Dogtail. Sorry, Dogtail.
But I think, I mean, we'll get to it, but I think that's why Confess Fletch also works really well, is because the audience is kept in the dark, even though Fletch isn't.
Yeah.
In the end.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that for sure. I'm honestly more excited to talk about that movie than this movie, especially since you haven't seen it and I've been begging you to watch it.
Yeah.
But I mean, the plot in this one is very simplistic if you think about it. I mean, it's just, Alan Stanwyck wants to give Fletch, because he thinks he's a bum, while he's like technically investigating this like drug trafficking ring on the beach in California, and he's like, "Oh, I'll give you." Alan Stanwyck's like, "Oh, I'll give you Fletch. I'll give you $50,000 to basically kill me, and I'm dying from a very rare disease, or like bone cancer."
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't want to go through all that, so just kill me, and then I've got a big insurance policy. So, and Alan Stanwyck just thinks he's some dumbass guy that will do anything for money, and he's not, and that's what brings him on his journey. I think it's just such a simple plot that like drives everything. I almost want more. It's like almost too simple for me.
There is a bit of like intertwining of other things. Like in the end, the like drug ring comes back into it and stuff. But I do feel like that like subplot is a little glossed over and probably could have been brought to the forefront a little bit more.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think overall it's fairly straightforward.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of, I mean, there's maybe like close to like 15 different like investigative like set pieces that he like goes through in the movie.
I know. It's a little
So, like,
tedious.
Yeah, I mean, they're all like funny encounters, so like, you know, it is like, it's not like I wouldn't call it too tedious to like for the viewer, but I feel like they could have done a little bit better job of getting that information to him in, you know, a little bit more concise way, but
Yeah, tightening it up a little bit. But
yeah.
I mean, the set pieces are pretty funny. I mean, it starts off with him going to the doctor to see if Alan, in fact, has bone cancer, and he poses as a patient, and he calls the doctor Dr. Jellyfinger because he checks his prostate, and like that scene is really funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that scene was hilarious. He like asked the doc, he's like, "Did you serve time?" Which is a really funny line. And like all of his comments with that, he's like, "You using the whole fist, doc?" Like, it's really, really funny. And then, you know, he goes and I like he's a master of disguise, and he goes from patient to like a doctor to like a surgeon, and finds the records that Alan does not have cancer. I like that whole sequence of events is cool.
Yeah.
And then he, you know, goes to talk to Alan's wife, and I love the name he uses, John Cocktoast. Just like literally off the cuff, making it up. Like, it seemed very ad-libbed. I think his wife does a great job in this movie, Gail Stanwyck, who's played by Dana Wheeler Nicholson. I think she's great in this movie. I think she does a good job. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, she's like oddly kind of like a straight man in some of the scenes with him. And like they have a pretty good like chemistry.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, it's like their like growing relationship is really like believable, which is good.
Agreed. It's not just like instantly they're like making out, which happens in a lot of early movies like this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and it's not an unnecessary romance either.
No, it's not. And I like that. Then again, another name that Fletch goes by is Mr. Poon, which is funny.
Yeah.
And then he gets to the realtor and he's investigating the realtor. Did the realtor look familiar to you at all? And it's okay if he doesn't. This is kind of an...
I don't remember who it is.
Okay. It's J.F. Sebastian from Blade Runner. He's the guy who makes all like the toys and stuff, or like the little characters and stuff.
Yeah.
When Pris like goes to his place.
Yeah, he takes the androids into his house or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And you've got M. Emmett Walsh, who's one of the doctors. He's also the chief from Blade Runner. So there's two Blade Runner references right there, which is pretty cool. 80s. You've got Chief Carlin, who's Joe Don Baker, who I love. I think he's awesome. He's in this awesome 70s movie that's super underrated, in my opinion, called Charlie Varick with Walter Matthau, where Walter Matthau plays a bank robber, and Joe Don Baker's a hitman because they steal the mob's money, and he comes after him. It's a really cool movie. Another movie that's rated PG that should not be rated PG. That's an incredibly underrated movie, in my opinion, that I like saw on TV randomly, and like my dad and I watched it and we loved it, and it's I own it on Blu-ray here. I mean, it's so good. So shout out if you haven't seen that movie, or if you have, that's awesome. But I like Joe Don Baker's character. I mean, he's kind of not in the movie a ton.
Yeah.
And like his corruption of like you said, like with the drugs and everything is kind of glossed over. I definitely think it could have been explored a little bit more, or
at least like driven home harder. near the end, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it is a comedy. It's like, I guess it doesn't have to necessarily be like perfect, I guess you could say, but they could have definitely done better with that.
It's almost like a throwaway subplot in the end. So like,
agreed. And what's funny, in the original book that this is based on, Chief Carlin and Alan Stanwyck were separate adversaries, like they're separate villains, and they're not working together, which they are in this movie. And so I'll just read kind of a little bit of a trivia here. In the novel, Fletch broke the drugs on the beach story, which resulted in an indictment against Chief Carlin. However, he had eluded arrest and was a fugitive by the end of the story. When Fletch confronts Stanwyck at his mansion about faking the cancer, it's discovered that Chief Carlin had followed Fletch there and shot Stanwyck from outside the house by accident. He was actually trying to kill Fletch, and they have like the same, build and everything, and that's mentioned in this, and it's mentioned in Confess Fletch, which is cool. And in the novel, as well as Gregory MacDonald's other Fletch stories, he's the author, Fletch is sarcastic and jokey, just not as lighthearted as Chevy Chase's portrayal. In the books, he's much more cynical and mean-spirited in his humor, which I would argue, even in Confess Fletch, he's not really mean-spirited. He's not, like, mean.
Yeah.
It's still kind of lighthearted. So I'd almost like to see, like, a mean Fletch.
Yeah. And we'll talk about it more, but I think John Hamm's portrayal is a little bit more like punchy with his like one-liners, and like he digs a little bit harder at people, but it's still not like mean-spirited, I'd say.
No. I mean, the other parts of the movie are pretty funny, where Chevy Chase has like the teeth, the like fake teeth, and he's like trying to fix the airplane, which again, that whole scene's kind of pointless.
Yeah.
Apparently Chevy Chase got to keep the fake teeth, and he would often wear them in public, and like people would not recognize him because of it, which is hilarious. Then there's another actor that is pretty famous. Fat Sam is George Wendt from Cheers.
Yep,
I like him. He's a good actor.
Yeah.
I want to talk about other scenes that I love. It's like the scene where Fletch is telling Gail, like he's like showing her pictures, and he's just like, there's all these random pictures of like, he's like, oh, and that's my car, and that's the dog that tried to bite me, and like, there's all the little tidbits. Like, I honestly thought that was probably one of the funniest parts of the movie.
Yeah, I think my favorite gag is how he just keeps putting all this like food and drinks on that one guy's tab at the club.
Oh yeah,
like, just like absurdly expensive things.
The Underhills, Underhill's bill. And then that guy like is knocking on the door, and that guy's so annoying.
Yeah, he is.
But it's cool because he kind of gets what he deserves, because he treats the the help staff or wait staff like shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good kind of running gag. It's like, get steak sandwich, get me 2.
Yeah.
So good. And then the ending for that, you get Alan, he's going to, kill Fletch, and I don't know, like the ending is kind of abrupt. I mean, what do you think of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think like by nature of the plot, it's like going to be abrupt,
Fair.
But yeah, I think the showdown with Stanwyck, is pretty well crafted.
Agreed.
I think when the police chief shows up, it's a little shoehorned, and like they even kind of like in the dialogue like dismiss like how he ended up like getting there, if I'm remembering correctly, like, or like why he's like showing up at that particular moment. Like, yeah, so like, yeah, I feel like they just didn't know how to resolve that part, independently. So they were just like, well, they'll both be there and they'll both, get the shit kicked out of them or whatever. And yeah. So, I mean, it's fine. Like, again, like, I think this movie's a bit more in the comedy pool than in the, detective story pool. So, like, you can be a little bit forgiving in some of that stuff.
Yeah. It's not bad by any means. And I like Gina Davis as Larry in this. She's good, but she's almost like a throwaway character. Like, she doesn't really do much. And I like her. I've been watching movies of her lately. Like, I just watched Thelma and Louise and The Long Kiss Goodnight. She's good. I like her. I've always liked her. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like, and there's not a ton to dislike. It's not a perfect movie. Have you seen the sequel, Fletch Lives?
I have not.
I don't think I have either. I don't know. I don't know if I want to necessarily.
I didn't even know there was one until I was searching for Confess Fletch, and
it's
it
an
showed
80s
up.
movie.
And I was like,
movie.
Yeah.
It's got a 6.1 on IMDb. It's not terrible.
All three movies had like a 6.1.
Yeah, this is 6.1. Fletch has 6.9, and Confess Fletch has 6.4. And I think that's a perfect segue to get into Confess Fletch, because I think it's so much better than the original.
Yeah, I agree.
So lay it on me, man. Let me know your thoughts. I've been waiting for this obviously I've been excited for this week to watch it. And that's why we were going to do a different set of movies first. And I was like, no, we got to do these because I've been wanting you to watch this so bad. And I recommend this movie to a lot of people because it's hilarious. And so lay it on me.
Love John Hamm. And
me too.
He's like one of my favorite actors. Mad Men is probably my favorite show of all time.
Oh, wow.
Nice. A very different role than this for him in Mad Men. But, I mean, he's got such good, like, comedy chops, too. Like, as well as, like, his dramatic, acting.
Yeah.
I love seeing him in comedies because he's so funny.
He is so funny.
He can deliver lines with, like, such a straight face that are like just like so deadpan. He's so good at it. Like he's somebody that I would, if Liam Neeson wasn't doing the
Naked Gun
remake, like John Hamm would be a good choice as well.
I could totally see that.
But yeah, so I love the plot a lot more in Confess Fletch. I liked the supporting cast a bit better. And like this Confess Fletch is like absolutely stacked with actors. It's like people that like you never would guess, like Kyle MacLachlan and I'm glad because I like Mad Men. I'm glad John Slattery was in it as his former editor. The two of them together are hilarious. Some of their scenes in Mad Men where they're like riffing off of each other are like so funny.
Nice.
But yeah, I like all of the characters. Even both of the cops are like well fleshed out characters, even though they're not like they don't spend a whole bunch of time like on them, but they're like they have like such well placed like character building moments that like you get such a good sense of like who they are as people and stuff, and like that's just like really good writing, in my opinion.
Agreed. So this movie came out in 2022, and it was like Miramax did not market this movie at all, and they didn't promote it. It literally was in theaters for like a week, and then they dumped it on demand, and it made absolutely no money. It had a $20 million budget, which is a shame because this movie is great, and I hope it becomes a cult classic. There were talks of doing a sequel, and like literally this past August, the director said, no, the plans are scrapped because there's new management at Miramax and they don't want to do it, which is a shame because I want this is one of the few movies I want a sequel so bad.
Yeah.
Because like you said, John Hamm, when he does comedy, he's so good. And I first saw John Hamm do comedy in Bridesmaids, and I thought he was honestly one of the best parts of the movie because he's such an asshole in that movie, and he's so funny. And I don't remember how I stumbled across this movie. I think I just saw it on like Paramount Plus, and I was like, "Oh, that looks pretty good." Like John Hamm, that's awesome. And I just kind of blindly went into it and watched it. And I was like, "Oh my god, this movie is hilarious." And I've seen it. This I think was either my third or fourth time watching it because I love it so much, and it's still hilarious. And I still laugh out loud at pretty much every joke. And it's like the plot thickens and becomes more like understandable, I guess you could say, every time I watch it.
Yeah, well,
because it's kind of a hard plot a little bit.
Because it's
like complicated. Of like
it gets
this
more and
person
more
has,
convoluted throughout the movie until the end, and then everything's super clear. Which is also hard to do well. Because when you build that type of complexity up, like throughout the movie, trying to tie it up neatly in like the last like 5 minutes is like damn near impossible. But they do it really well in Confess Fletch.
Yeah, so Greg Mottola, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing his last name, or Mottola or something like that. He's the director of this movie. He also co-wrote it. He is probably most famous for a movie of our like teen years, Superbad. He directed that. So he's got a knack for comedy. He also did Adventureland, which is a very good movie in my opinion. What else is he? He's done like different he's done like TV shows and stuff. He also did Clear History, the TV movie with Larry David, which I thought is hilarious. It's on HBO. If you haven't watched that, Jake, I think you
I haven't watched that.
Yeah. He also has done a lot of episodes of Dave, the show with Dave Bird, who plays Little Dicky. Did you ever watch that show?
I've seen like bits of it. Yeah,
that show is amazing in my opinion. That's like one of my favorite shows on television. It's like insanely good. But yeah, this movie is so fucking funny. There's just so many good like one-liners, and it's just funny right off the bat. So this movie is based on the second Fletch novel. The original Fletch from '85 is based on the first book, like I said earlier. But the movie starts off with the inciting incident of the murder, and John Hamm's just like, well, like the emergency's over. Why do I have to call 911? Just like get this over to homicide. Okay, bye. It's so good. And then it's like I am Fletch is his initials, and they're like, well, what's your name? Like, what's your full name? I am Fletch. Erwin Maurice Fletcher. And the yawning ID picture of just like, he like looks at it and he's just like, it just cuts to him. It's so good. So funny. Just like you said, John Hamm is very good at like little things like that. He's such a good actor. And I love how he's always just like, I'm an investigative journalist of some repute. I like how he just keeps saying that. Yeah, you got Kyle MacLachlan from Blue Velvet and Twin Peaks as a germaphobe. Oh, I think I lost connection. All right, you got me back?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I was saying, and we can cut that. You got Kyle MacLachlan from Blue Velvet, 80s movie we did. You know him from Twin Peaks. And he's like a germaphobe in this, and he's really
so
good. Yeah, he's so good in this. And
Everybody's
he's so
fondling
believable.
my boat.
Yeah, they always touch my boat. So good. You got the same type of made up names from Fletch, where he's like, I'm Mikey Wahlberg, Mikey Mike. And just like making a ton of things up. His rental car is sick.
Yeah.
We're big fans of Audi, and he's got an Audi RS7, which literally every time I watch this movie, it makes me want one. It's perfection in that movie. And then you've got Eve, the like next door neighbor to what's the guy's name that owns the apartment? I'm blanking. Sorry.
Yeah, I can't remember either.
Tasterly.
Yeah.
And Eve is fucking hilarious in this movie.
Yeah.
How she's just like a bumble. She's like just a klutz and doesn't know what the fuck she's doing. Like letting her dog piss on the ground, throws the towel down, misses it completely, and Fletch's reaction to it is just like, what? Just his whole expressions. All his expressions and his reactions in that whole entire scene in Eve's apartment is so funny.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like cutting her finger open, and he's just like, like, this is like, what the fuck is happening?
He's like, wrap that towel around your hand. Like, put some pressure on that.
Yeah. Like her scarf catches on fire. She just like puts the oil all over and catches on fire. She's like, oh, it'll burn off. He's just like, what? Yeah. So good.
Yeah, I think that's like a good distinguishing like detail between Chevy Chase and John Hamm's portrayals of Fletch. I feel like John Hamm portrays him as smarter, but he's like low key about it, you know? Like he pretends to be like the bumbling like clown, but he actually like knows what's going on. He does, like, really,
but he still does things that are like stupid, like him slipping and dropping the gun.
Oh yeah, yeah. But like, and that's I think like what makes it is like he's an imperfect, you know, like character, and like without that, he becomes too much like a super detective, you know, like he needs that little bit of like imperfection. Yeah. But like I do like that he's more like in control, I think, in this movie, which like you don't really know that until the end. Which is like a great like reveal. Yeah.
And like there's a scene where he's just like listening to a podcast and it's about pig orgasms and it's just like so random, and then he mentions it to the trainee Grizz, which again, like you said, the detectives in this movie are awesome. They're so good, and they're well developed. Like you've got Maurice Monroe, slow-mo. He's got the baby and he's just tired, but he's like very smart and
like very meticulous and very
like him pushing the fruit over in the beginning. You like know he's like, all right, I'm casing the whole place. Mm-hmm. And Grizz is really like, she's surprisingly smart even though she's like new at all this. I think my favorite part of the entire movie is when he gives that letter, the Mr. Locke letter, and he's like, John Locke. He's like, oh yeah, it's my pen name. He's like, sounds made up. And then he's like, well, yeah, it's a pen name. And his facial expression and reaction, that is my all-time favorite part of the entire movie. It's just so good. It's so well done, and it's so funny.
Yeah.
It's just perfect John Hamm. Like,
that was,
attitude.
I think, the line that got me to like laugh out loud for the first time in the movie.
Really?
And like, I think, you know, I watched these back-to-back days. So like, you know, going from the original to, you know, obviously an entirely new cast, entirely new like time frame, you know, and everything. You know, I was a little like hesitant, you know. I mean, I knew that you loved it, so I wasn't like worried about it being bad or anything, but it was just different. but like that line, the like pen name line, like really sold me on it, and I was like, oh, okay, like I understand like his character now, and like
Yeah.
you know, like I was like fully bought in at that point.
Yeah. It's just, yeah, I mean, again, watching it again, like for the third time, just I laughed at literally every joke, basically. Yeah, I mean, you've got there's just like other great parts, like John Hamm telling that one like yachtsman guy at the club that his uncle
Chopped
got
up by a
chopped up by a boat propeller and turned into sauce, which is hilarious.
then just like walks away.
Yeah. That whole part, just little stuff like that. It's just like little scenes. And it again, it throws it back to the other Fletch, where he's just like making shit up and like saying, like he just out of blind luck got this guy's name randomly, and like saying, oh yeah, he's my uncle. And it's kind of similar to the scene in the first Fletch with the airport, where he's just trying to figure out his like boarding pass and everything, and like figures out there's someone sitting next to him. Excuse me, I don't know why I said me. My dog's next to me. You've probably seen her in some of the shots if you're watching live. And she always shakes off, and you hear her call her. So that's what that is. That's my dog. Yeah, it's little scenes like that, like the connection between the two movies. There's a lot of like homage in Confess Fletch to the first Fletch, which I like.
The confidence with which he lies is like what lets him like get away with it.
Yeah.
So much. And like, it's just funny when he like, you know, manages to work his way through a conversation. And then for like the yacht conversation is probably the funniest one, just because he like cooks up that story of his uncle's like grisly death for no reason.
Yeah.
Like just like horrifies this old man. But like just because he can, you know, it's kind of
and it's like he's literally trying to get this person away from him.
Yeah, right. That's where I think like also John Hamm's portrayal is like he's a little bit more of an asshole than the Chevy Chase version is, but he picks and chooses kind of when he wields that. Yeah.
I like the Countess Degrassi in this. She's funny and how she's like, Flesh. You seduce me. Are you trying to seduce me, Flesh? So funny. She's great in this.
Yeah.
Angela Degrassi's great in this too. Like again, like you said, all the supporting cast is awesome. I like when John Hamm pretends he's Frank Jaffe and goes over to Tasserly's like ex-wife's house and is just like making fun of her to her face, and she doesn't realize it. Like, what does bespoke mean? And then like they mention that
like
when they
bespeaking.
Yeah. Be truths. There's like the culmination kind of where all the characters kind of come to Tasserly's house, and even the ex-wife and Tasserly are like, you don't know what bespoke means? You fuck. Like, I forget exactly what they say. Like, what the fuck? It's so like it's just funny and just so. It's just the chaosness of it, and I like that, and that's kind of what defines these Fletch movies, is like kind of comedic chaos that's not over the top, but it's like right underneath it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I like that. It's fun. It's entertaining. Yeah, I mean so tell me about your thoughts on the ending of this movie, of Confess Fletch.
Yeah, so like we were talking about this movie's much more of like a web of like intrigue, you know, as like you're trying to figure out who stole these paintings that are worth like tens of millions of dollars from the father, the Count Degrassi, I guess.
Yeah.
Who's missing. And and his daughter is trying to simultaneously find the paintings and locate her father. And she hires Fletch to locate the paintings for her. In coming across all these different characters, like everybody has motive to have stolen the paintings, which I think is, you know, good, like, mystery writing. And like in the end, I think he does a really good job, or the writers did a really good job of making you think that it's the countess, or not the countess, the daughter of the count, you know, who's actually the one that orchestrated the whole thing. And then they flip it, and it's actually Kyle MacLachlan.
Yeah.
Like, who's kind of been, like, the weirdo, you know, like, side character the whole movie, which I think is also, like, why it, like, fits into, like, the comedic, you know, part of the movie. Because he's, like, this, like, germophobic EDM nut, and, like, which is hilarious also. And yeah, I think it's a really well written ending, even beyond the, like, what you call the climax, where, you know, like, it's revealed that McLaughlin's character is actually the one behind the whole thing. Then you find out on top of that the Count actually hired Fletch and, you know, fucked off to, like, the Canary Islands or something for, like, a vacation, while Fletch, like, went through this whole thing, which was actually, like, kind of planned out.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, which is, like, super cool. Reminds me a little bit of, like, Ocean's 11 or something like that, you know.
And then the Count gives the paintings to him, which is crazy. And then Fletch gives the paintings to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like, that helped him along the way, which is cool.
Yeah.
And then he's got the most expensive one at the end.
Yeah. Which I love his phone call with Frank, his editor.
Yeah.
Where he's like, yeah, why the fuck did you send me this piece of shit painting?
Yeah, it's in the garbage.
Like, yeah, he's like, I threw it in the garbage. And, like, they talk a little bit, and he's like, yeah, you might want to get that appraised before you throw that out.
Yeah.
And you can hear him like, get the garbage can.
Yeah. So the Count, though, the Countess, or excuse me, Angela Degrassi actually technically planned, like stole the paintings to, like, keep them from the Countess, I think, and gave them to Ronald Harron, Kyle MacLachlan's character. But Kyle MacLachlan's character was like, I'm going to actually keep these and sell these, and that way he can pay off all his debts and his insurance claims.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, I love the ending, and I really hope they make a sequel in the future. Maybe they will. I doubt it, because it sounds like they're not going to. And it's a shame that this movie didn't make any money, and I think it's criminally underrated, and I think everyone needs to watch this movie because it's hilarious, and hopefully the more people that watch it, the bigger the following becomes, and then maybe there could be a sequel. But if not, I mean, it's not all just to get a sequel. It's just to get some recognition for a great movie, in my opinion, and a great legacy sequel.
Yeah.
I would rate this movie, Confess Fletch, better than the original Fletch. I like them both. I'm glad I watched them. I'm especially glad you finally watched Confess Fletch. And yeah, which movies are we doing next week? Are we doing Ghostbusters?
Yeah, so next week is Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Which I've never seen Afterlife,
Never
so I'm
seen
excited
it
to
either.
watch that.
Yeah.
I think there's like a multiple sequels now for that.
Yeah, there is the like Frozen something.
Frozen Empire?
Yeah, Frozen Empire is the sequel to Afterlife.
Yeah, and Afterlife is a true legacy sequel.
Right. Yeah.
So that'll be cool.
Yeah, and that's like where, like, I guess Fletch or Confess Fletch is kind of
more
like
of
a
a
soft reboot,
Yeah.
but kind of also a sequel.
Yeah. Because it's the second book, like we said.
Yeah. And like they kind of talk about how like the events of the first movie happened, but not necessarily in the 80s. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like linearly like, correct.
And I like that they kept the Lakers like theme, that he's like a big Lakers fan.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. So yeah, next week is Ghostbusters.
Yep.
Then Beetlejuice and Beetlejuice,
Which I have not seen as well.
which I have not seen either.
And I'm excited for that.
And then we're wrapping up the month with Tron and Tron Legacy, which is
I'm
also
stoked.
truly a Legacy sequel.
Yes. Which is funny.
Yeah. So I mean, I think I'm glad we did these two first.
Yes.
Because I think like Confess Fletch has a lot of the elements that I would look for in a good like soft reboot / legacy sequel, where
Yeah.
like you're taking like all the best parts of the original and like tweaking it a little bit to like make it more, contemporary or like, whatever, like accessible to like a contemporary audience. But you don't lose any of what made the original great,
Yeah, it doesn't tarnish the legacy at all.
Right.
And
And it's like,
it's not trying to be the same thing. It's not a remake.
right.
And that's what I like about it.
Yeah, and that's like I think the biggest thing that's going to determine if I like the sequels that we're going to watch are how they treat the original like source material. And,
Yeah.
I care a lot about Ghostbusters and Beetlejuice. I've never seen the original Tron, which is why I'm excited to see those, because I think
I've
you and
seen
I
it.
saw Tron Legacy in theaters,
Maybe. I know I saw
in,
it with
like,
Adam.
high school when it came out.
I saw it in IMAX 3D, which I can't wait to talk about that movie because I love that movie.
Yeah, I remember it's an awesome movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, anyway, like, the source material is really important, especially
Yeah.
if you're doing a sequel like 30 years later. And it just sucks when they like treat the original like garbage or like, it's not important.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see how these other couple
Movies
go.
stack up. Yeah. I'm excited. So, yep, that's our month this month. Another theme. I think I like doing the themes. Let us know if you like them. Yeah, the original 80s movie and its legacy sequel. And yeah, I'm super excited for all of them. Hope you guys watched Confess Fletch and watched Fletch. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll catch you next week.
Yeah, see you.